How to Thrive During Change with Sarah Wong. Good day, everybody. And you're going to be really excited to listen to Sarah because she is an expert and passionate about thriving through change in a way that has you evolve even more amazing than you already were to start with. And the thing I love about Sarah is her attitude, her creativity, and her positive way of living in the world. So I asked Sarah to be on the show, and she's here today from California, and I'm in Florida, so it's very early in the morning for her, which is her prime creative time. So I'm really excited to get her at her prime creative time. So Sarah, welcome to the show, and I'm so glad we're going to talk about how to thrive through change with you today.
Oh, thank you, Diane. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and see where the conversation goes towards. Yeah.
I think it will be really, really fun.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first thing I would like to start with is tell me a little bit, or tell all of us a little bit about how you got into this work. Like, what is it that kind of drew you down this path?
Oh, wow. Yeah. So I think that this was sort of my path of destiny in a way. When I was trying to take control of my life so much, I wasn't really drawn, I think, to the right places, but it took sort of releasing and surrendering a little bit to the universe to kind of get me actually here to where I'm at today. I have my own business and I'm working as a career advisor with an organization. And I was adopted from birth, sort of starting off from the very first day of my life in this kind of change, right?
Right.
As a newborn baby, I was adopted from birth. So that was a change right away. And just throughout my whole life, it was kind of evolution after evolution after evolution. And I had a really wonderful childhood. My childhood years were great. But as I got older and I, started to kind of come into myself a little bit, like in my early 20s, after college, that time, I was struggling with my identity. I didn't really know who I was or how to identify myself in the world, really. And not knowing this huge part of myself, not having any idea like who my biological family was or where they came from or really much information about them. It was a problem, and I know it's not just me being adopted. Other people have these problems as well, where they are disconnected maybe from their true ancestry. I think maybe here in America, a lot of people have that where they don't really know where their families come from. So I struggled with that. And I here in the Bay Area, it's the tech bubble, Silicon Valley, and all of my peers were really thriving in these industries. And I would just wanted to be a part of it so much. But my personality is like so different. Like you said, I am a very creative and kind of positive and like really empathic and compassionate person. And the tech bubble, not to like be too harsh about it or anything, but it's just not that way. It's more rigid, it's more strict, it's more, like rational and just like straightforward and masculine. And I'm none of those things really. So it was hard for me, being here where that was the image of the best thing to be, everybody, and my dad as well. Like I love my dad, but he was a top level manager at Chevron. So, he was very much that way. And the image in his mind of like who you should be is, professional and wearing a suit, you know what I mean? And that sort of thing. So here I was like this little fairy girl, like with flowers in my hair, running around with like rainbow glitter everywhere, and just wanting to, be something completely different. And so it took really kind of getting to that kind of breaking point in my life of feeling kind of pulled between all these different things that everybody around me expected me to be or wanted me to be. But I, in that process, lost myself, what I truly wanted to be and who my identity was. So through that, I was like, I kind of took back the ownership of my life. It took my power back into my own hands and started to really make decisions for myself and, like know who and what I should be kind of spending my time with. And I think especially over this last year with this pandemic and this quarantine, it's quite literally forced us all inside and, away from a lot of things. So through that, I've actually found a lot of space and growth and time for me to like come back to myself. So, it's just been like my whole life has been this evolving sort of evolution of change. And Now I'm at this point where I really want to inspire others to kind of use some of the tools that I've found useful, right? Because that's what I like to call it, like my toolkit, right?
Right.
Because somebody else might use the same tool that I have in a completely different way, but that might be just as useful, but for them. So I think that's, it's kind of, I like to use analogies a lot in my work. It's like, like a carpenter or something, like a carpenter has their toolkit. And then when they give their toolkit to their apprentice or whatever, that apprentice learns the tools and, then figures out their own way, right, with it.
Right.
So that's
Right.
sort of how I like to inspire people and help people.
Oh, that's so inspiring. So you brought up a ton of like questions in my mind, of course.
Yeah.
And the first thing that has been going through my mind almost the whole time you're talking was Socrates' quote, "The only constant is change."
Oh, yeah.
And how so many people kind of stake their claim of how they hate change, they don't like change, they do stuff the hard way, and they make their life like really, really hard by staking that claim, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've run into those kinds of people. It probably in the Silicon Valley rigid paradigm, right? Like, it has to be this way. And you're like, la, la, la. No, not really.
Yeah.
And so what I'm curious about then, you being an empath, and then that's, taking on, empaths tend to take on all that energy. What have you done over your life to be able to help yourself emerge in a joyful, happy way where it didn't take you down?
It has taken me down before. It certainly has. Yeah.
And somehow you emerged out of that takedown. So what did you do to help yourself emerge out of that energy that I'm sure was really difficult?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was really turning that lens and pulling that energy back into myself. One of my friends, actually, he is he's a spiritual medium. Like, he is probably the most convincing person that I've ever spoken to. So his stories and just his recollections and the way he is, like, you can literally feel like spirit energy coming off of this guy. And he was talking with me one day when I was really at the bottom. I was at my rock bottom. I was worn thin. My energy wall was worn thin. And at this point, I didn't even really know about like chakras or energy balance or any of that sort of stuff. And he gave me a black tourmaline stone. I'm not sure if you're familiar with black tourmaline, but it's a really powerful it protects against psychic attacks, like negative psychic attacks. It like absorbs them. I actually have one that I hold on to almost all the time still to this day. And so he gave me this black tourmaline stone, and it got so hot in my hand, like the moment that I touched it. And I was like, why is it getting so hot? He's like, it's because it's absorbing all the energy. It's helping you. And I was like, okay. And so that was sort of the start for me. I had been sort of meditating and doing breath work, but I wasn't really thinking about it through a spiritual lens. I was thinking about it through more of like a de-stress, anti-anxiety sort of lens.
Yes.
But as I went down that path of, just doing breath work, just like breathing and sitting calmly for a little bit to try to reduce my anxiety, that's when like the spirit body, started to become more powerful, and I started to get a lot more in touch with the spirit body and that side of things. And so as I started to realize that I do have an energy center, that I do have this spirit body, I had basically spent the majority of my life not even acknowledging or believing that it exists and neglecting it entirely. And, there's, I think, a lot of evidence, at least in my life, my experience, that, if you neglect your spirit body and your energy body, I mean, it manifests here in the physical, and then you start to have physical symptoms that show up random. For me, I get like irritable bowel syndrome stuff, like my throat starts burning, my stomach starts burning, my skin gets like really dry. I think a lot of people maybe with psoriasis or eczema, like maybe have, it could be not every case, obviously, but there might be something going on in the spirit. Because I think the thing with a lot of illnesses, right, a lot of people, when they're having these symptoms, even mental health symptoms too, they want to attribute it to a physical thing. They see it on their body and they're like, oh, this must be something in the physical, you know what I mean? This must be something that I need a medicine, or I need to put an ointment on here or something. They don't really think, and this is what I was doing. I wasn't really thinking like, oh, I need to like meditate and pray and de-stress and spend time inside to help this issue, right? To make this get better. And as I started doing those things, as I started kind of leading more into that, my spirit body started healing, and I started becoming, it fed the empath energy inside of me, right? Because my empath energy like got worn down basically almost to like nothing, and I started to like become somebody that I know I'm not naturally, because by my nature, I'm just like I said, like pixie rainbow fairy girl, like super like sweet and loving. And when I find myself like kind of angry at the world and, resentful about the people around me and feeling just upset at everything, that's when I know I'm like, okay, there's something going on here and I need to like maybe do some work in a different area, and maybe open up to a different way to help myself rather than just go running to the doctor every single time and asking like, well, what's going on? Because sometimes, no harping on Western medicine 100%, but sometimes the doctors may not have the answer. So yeah, you have to kind of look in other places sometimes. And that's exactly what I did that's exactly what I still do to protect myself. But if I do have a problem that a doctor can solve, I definitely, go to the doctor too. So.
Oh yeah, I think it's a yes and, right? I think it's a lot of people think it's either or, and I'm with you. It's a yes and,
yeah.
I was just teaching in my Someone Gets Me inner circle, because I have an inner circle group that I teach. I was just teaching about the spiritual principles of as above, so below, that all things that land in the body started spiritually.
Absolutely.
So if there's a disconnect in one place, that if we only start in the physical realm to take care of it, that's the long way. That this is the only time I say you can burn the candle at both ends, is address the physical and address the spiritual and the mental, emotional in the middle, so that then we get a faster result.
Yeah.
And freedom. And so you're describing it perfectly.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It matters that, especially as sensitive people, that we realize that not all of the things that are kind of wearing us down to like, where your poor little empath self, I could just see her just like, no, let me show up. Let me show, like barely making it through. And then when you started feeding that energy and really taking care of her again, that like coming home and taking care of you, like really taking care of you.
Yeah.
Then that part of you, that natural spiritual part of you that came to the world with a great message, could begin to be resuscitated. And then pretty soon she could walk and crawl again. And then pretty soon she could thrive again, but it's not like a weekend project.
Oh my gosh. No, for me, it's been about three years in the making thus far. The majority of the work took about probably 18 months, and it's a slow to go process. And I think that, the classic story of the tortoise and the hare, right? Like the truly, there is so much merit to like the value of patience and kind of in understanding more of how the universe works, right? I think there's some certain universal truths, and I think patience is one of those, and learning how to slow down. One of the best kind of turning points of advice that I received was from a life coach. I wasn't working with her directly, but she was just consulting with me. And she said that the mind is like, imagine a mason jar full of water with sand in it, right? And the more that you stay in motion and going and putting yourself out there and doing stuff and worrying about everything and not stopping, it's like shaking that mason jar and shaking that mason jar. And if you look at it, it's just going to be muddy and you can't see through it. And it's just, like just foggy. But if you put that mason jar down and you just let it sit there, right? And you just give it some time and you just let it settle. Slowly but surely, you can start to see right through and things become a lot more clear. And she was like, think of your mind like that mason jar, and think of your body even like that mason jar. And if you're feeling like foggy and uncertain and unclear, just give yourself a little bit of time. I mean, the modern example could be like in IT, they say, just unplug it and plug it back in again. I think we need that sometimes. Just unplug yourself for a little bit, and then you can plug back in and be charged up again,
Right. And so that leads to that whole idea that, people are so addicted to being plugged in.
Yeah.
On their phone all the time, or always have to do this, and difficulty with delayed gratification.
Yeah.
And yet real transformation doesn't live in that paradigm. real change, I call it like making friends with our evolution, right? Like, because we're always moving forward. There's always an expansion, and it's a never ending process. There's no finish line, right? So we have to make friends with unplugging, and that temptation to grab the phone. Like, I had a friend of mine goes, I'm not going to use my phone for a while. I said, okay. And then we were like just talking, and he kept grabbing the phone. I said, what are you doing? He goes, I said, yes, exactly. That we've all been trained with the endorphin rushes and all the other stuff, and our society and our culture, little by little, we've been trained like the frogs in the water to be connected all the time, when the real transformation is when we're disconnected. Because we can see through the water, we can see through, right?
And it comes along. I mean, it comes inside, right? I think, you see people traveling across the globe, going to Thailand for like personal retreats, and, they go to India and they fly to South America, to Brazilian rainforest. You see these people traveling all around the globe, looking for the answers, asking, well, where is it? What's the secret? Where can I find it? Where is it? And if they just took a moment to just stop and just sit anywhere, you know what I mean? In their house, right? I think that's in the way I touched on it earlier with this quarantine and being forced inside for myself. And that's where so much growth has happened. I mean, I live alone. So I've been by myself through this whole thing. And it's just like, I don't feel alone at all. It's the craziest thing. I have never been more alone. I guess technically I've never been more isolated in my entire life, but I feel more connected, more grounded, more confident, more happy within myself than I ever did when I was surrounded by a sea of thousands of people, and it's all because I've found that light inside it. I know we all have that light inside it. It's inside of all of us. But some people, I feel like it's gotten so dim that it's like they barely can see it, but it can be illuminated back again. It can be, you can maybe go in there and plug in an LED light or something, change it, swap it out, and kind of re-illuminate that in people's lives. And I think this last year, my optimistic hope when the pandemic first came in was that maybe this would be an opportunity for more people to illuminate their light. But I think that the connection of media has really barred a lot of people from doing that, because rather than taking that time inside, they have just been so even more, you know what I mean, in the digital space and in the digital world. So I think a lot of people have maybe even gone further into like that lack of hope or that lack of light. And that's a lot of the work that I want to help people do, is to know, especially when they're in that phase of feeling hopeless, because I've been there. And it was because of, like I said, that medium, my coaches, the advisor that I spoke with, the one that I mentioned, a couple of other mentors and coaches, it was them putting their hand out to me and pulling me up and forcing me. They were not giving me a choice. They said, you have to come up. You have to come. And me making that change in my life, like that's exactly how I want to pay forward, that wisdom to the world, because being here in this place, in this space, I can't imagine that anybody out there would not want to be here versus in that place of darkness, Right.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. It's totally true. And that's one of the things that I really resonated with you when I first met you, was because it's like, oh my God, it has to do with knowing that those people who reached out to help you, people reached out to help me, and I'm reaching out to help other people. And
exactly.
I tell everybody we're like lighthouses. And so you have to turn the light on, and then you have to put the shades up from all the different panels so that people can see your light once you got the light on. It's not one process. There's more than one thing happening. And that's how we're meant to show up in the world. That's what we're meant to do. Yeah. And I think sometimes people who go through those darkest times are the ones whose lights come out much brighter than we realize, I just think that I see that over and over and over again with me personally, and with people that I work with, and it's everywhere. So what created the name Metamorphosis? Like, how did you get that word? because clearly that's what we're talking about. But that's an interesting word for the container.
Yeah, I mean, so it's Metamorphosis 101, right? So that's it's kind of in the name of the brand, right? Of the business, of what I do. It's I teach the basics, the introduction of transformation, you know. And what a metamorphosis is more than a transformation. It's a complete evolution to a completely different form. It's, you know what I mean? A caterpillar and a butterfly are two completely different organisms. And I really do believe, like, I look back at myself when I was in my weakest form, and I believe that I am like completely different. I mean, and we do actually shed our skin, you know what I mean? Like we literally change our bodies throughout our lives. And I just, beyond like the mental and the spiritual work that I do, you know, I do a lot of like physical kind of change too. Like I changed my diet, you know, I help people with like sort of understanding kind of the holistic aspect of health, right? Because I think that that's one of the biggest misnomers. One of the things, like, I remember I had this revelation a few years ago, like, health is more than just physical. Health is not just health is like so much more than just physical, right? Because that's, again, how my mind had been framing it. And this was just I think my perception throughout my life was, you know, in the media, right? It's always this image of health, of this lady in a bikini, you know, this guy with a ripped 6-pack abs. And like, that's the picture of health, right? That's what they said. This is what healthy is. It's a physical image. But it was never like a healthy, you know, you could see like a woman on TV who was kind of neurotic, but as long as she had a hot bod, you know, oh, she's healthy, you know. But it's like, health is so much more than just having a good physical, attractive body. You know, health is a holistic spectrum of your mental, your social, your emotional, your behavior, even your environmental health, right? Like the way that you set up your environment, like all these different factors. I have an 11-factor model actually that I use when I work with people to sort of get to identify whatever their sort of thing is. Because I think for everybody, there's like a main problem but at the root of that problem is often something else. You know, they see something on the surface and they're like, this is my problem. Like for me as a career advisor, a lot of times I'm dealing with folks that are out of jobs and they think that's their problem. They're like, I'm out of work. I don't have a job. I need your help in finding a job. But the problem is oftentimes rooted somewhere else. So that's what I really like to do, is I like to get to the root of the problem and I like to help people solve that. And then the end goal can be getting them into a wonderful job that they truly love. And I would much rather do that work than just get them a job and say, okay, here, see you later, you know, because you can get anybody a job, right? I mean, finding people jobs, I guess in the pandemic world is a little bit more challenging, but still, you know, you could find people jobs. You could find a restaurant or something, you know what I mean? You could find like a Amazon delivery, you know, so you could find a job for somebody. But I really want to inspire people to figure out what their real values are in life, who they are, right? Find that identity, right? Because like I said, my struggle really came with a lot of identity issues and not really knowing who I am and what my place is in this world. So I think that lacking that for people and not having that sensibility is a real challenge. And oftentimes I think people maybe don't even have a full awareness of the fact that they're maybe lacking some part of identity or that they have this issue. So I like to, you know, help them sort of see that, understand that, and, you know, kind of figure that out. Like, it's a lot of like shepherding, right? It's not like I can't make choices for people. I can't get in their lives. I can't, you know, like do their planning and everything. I can help them with planning, but I think it's really about empowering people. That's what I'm all about. I love to empower people to, you know, find that strength within themselves. Yeah.
Right. Well, you can't do it for them. You know, you want them to do it, but you know, everybody has to walk their own path. And as you're speaking, I'm thinking about how that butterfly who goes into the chrysalis turns completely liquid before it starts to become the caterpillar.
Wow.
And
yeah.
And then when you're talking about helping people find the job, I'm like, well, really what you're doing is you're helping them live their vocation.
Yeah.
Now they think that they're getting a job. And if they really listen to you and
Mm-hmm.
they can become delighted by your real way of doing it, it's just not the external get a job. It's be in your legacy, be in your passion, be in who you really are authentically meant to be. Then the employment is a beautiful reflection of what you're meant here to do, which is your vocation. So it's and that goes with the metamorphosis. I just love how you use that word for that, because when somebody runs into you and they think they're only going to get a job, if they actually go with you down that path, they're going to come out in a entirely different place.
Yeah.
And I dig that. I personally think that that's an amazing thing that you're doing, which is why you're on the show, but also because that's like what I do a lot with people in a different kind of way. Because my people come to me usually because they're gifted or they're empaths and they're struggling with anxiety or depression, or nobody understands me and all of those kinds of things. And they feel siloed and disconnected. And I'm like, well, and I have 11 things I look at. Like, let's look at that. Let's look at this and see what's really going on. And then we learn how the spiritual world and the emotional and the mental and the physical and the social world come together. And now let's find something that's more grand. Yeah. So there's a lot of really nice harmony in the kinds of ways that we see things.
Yeah.
And it's so refreshing to me. It's refreshing for me to meet you and to have you on the show, because it's like, see, it is possible. It is possible to take a pandemic when you live alone and create something so amazing that for years to come, you'll be looking back going, wow, that was great. That was powerful. That was amazing.
Yeah.
Or we could choose the dark side and feel sorry for ourselves and get all weird and have a longer road out, which some people are choosing, and that's free will. That's okay. But it's it's nice to know that we can take difficulty in the world and say, all right, what can I do to have this help me? Now, I want to touch on something else that goes with this that I think is important for everybody. And that is the ability to receive the help. So when those people reached out to you in your darkest time where you're like, not sure you're going to make it, you had to, on some level, be willing to actually grab their hand back, to receive it, to hold the stone, to learn the next thing, to do the meditation. Will you speak to that a little bit, about that ability to receive support, help, guidance?
Absolutely. So I think, as you probably know, obviously, the reason that oftentimes we get even to that point, right, of that dark rock bottom, that real tough place, is because we've often shut ourselves off to receiving for so long. And I absolutely was there, where I was, it's up to me, right? People would be offering help and I'd be like, no, it's okay. I got it. Don't worry, like that sort of thing.
Right.
For a long time. And I had an incident happen where I've never shared this story publicly or openly, but I'm going to share it here today. So, this was truly my moment of surrender. This was truly that turning point for me in my life. I was driving my car one night. It was about 2.5 years ago now or so. And it was pitch black. It was, I didn't see anything happening at all. I was just totally normally driving. And all of a sudden I thought that somebody shot me, because I live in Oakland, California. So I thought somebody shot me through my window, and I was like, I felt my body and I was like, oh my God, did somebody just shoot into my car? Because it sounded like a gunshot. And my window, I look up, my whole window was smashed in, like and I was like, what just happened? And I look over to the side of my car and I see a man sitting on the side of the road. And I was like, what just happened? What just happened? I did not see him. He was completely in my blind spot. I was just making a left turn onto the road. I was very close to my apartment, and I hit this guy with my car. And I was like, oh my God. I could not believe this happened. So The moment that I got home, I mean, turned out the guy was like 7 times the legal limit drunk. He was absolutely wasted, walking around, rumbling around the middle of the street, and the cops and everything deemed that, it was a complete accident. And if anything, my therapist was like, "Are you okay?" Because it was like actually, like, I blamed myself very much at first because I was like, "It's my fault. I hit him," but everything, even my insurance was like, "It wasn't your fault. Like, don't blame yourself." It was just a horrific timing, horrible thing that happened. And when I got home that night, because I kind of identified myself as an atheist or an agnostic, like I didn't really know what to believe in terms of my spirituality, but I had this moment that day when this happened. I fell down to my knees and I crossed my hands for the first time in my life, and I was like, "God, do you exist? Like, what is going on?" Like these are the types of things that I think, like, it shook me to my core. It literally got into my soul and started rattling my soul. And I was like, I have to change, because I had other things happening like this. I had other sort of darkness surrounding me. I had other sort of, instances of dark entities sort of coming through me and making bad things happen in my life. And this was like the most extreme thing. And I was like, if I don't pay attention to this as a sign, if I don't take this as a sign, and if I don't radically begin to change my life, I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know what the next thing is going to be. Mm-hmm. And so I surrendered, and I committed myself in that moment. And like I said, that's actually probably about the time where I really started to change. And it was a slow process, but that was like moment one. And I've had some other crazy traumas and things happen since then. But I had another really bad series of incidents happen about a year ago, but that was really the start point of this is time. It's time to acknowledge that which exists outside of myself. It's time to shift, and it's time to open up to moving forward and change. And I think that through those traumas, through those intense, crazy, horrifying traumas, often that's what it sort of takes sometimes. That's what it requires, unfortunately, in life, to get people to wake up. And I'm glad that I chose to wake up. I'm glad that I chose to, feel that surrender, because in that moment, I so crazy. I can tell you, I felt like angels come in when I went down onto my knees and I prayed. I could literally feel them like, it's okay. It's okay. This is happening because it needs to. You need this moment. You need this awakening, but we will take care of you. We will surround you with love if you continue to believe in us, if you continue to take the right steps forward. And that was kind of the first moment where I was like, all right, okay. I mean, it wasn't, like you said, it wasn't an overnight thing. It wasn't like I was suddenly like, okay, now I believe in spirit angels and all the guardian angels and all this stuff. It took a long time for me to really sort of look back on that moment and kind of remember and process all of it. But yeah, it was just this intensely powerful experience that was really, I think, the start point for this evolution in my life.
Well, what a wake-up call. What a way for the universe to get your attention, and I tell everybody that I work with, whisperer or 2x4, you get to pick what it is. Spirit's whispering to you, and if you're not listening, and then there'll be the roar, and then there's the 2x4, and you get clocked over the head in some interesting way, and then that's your major invitation to understand that something else is going on here that you need to pay attention to. Otherwise, the next 2x4 isn't going to be so great. And they'll keep coming until you get it. Until
it gets to the point. And my fear was the next step. Who knows what the next step would be? You know what I mean? I don't want to get too morbid here, but I could almost feel death kind of knocking on my door a little bit. And I was like, I want to live. I want to thrive. I was still so young. I was like, I have so much life left to live. And I have to choose a different path forward. I have to choose a different path forward.
Right. Well, in that moment, you had to choose life over death. Like, you have to choose to live, not just survive, not just kind of figure it out, not be sleepwalking through life, but you had to make the choice to say, I'm choosing to live.
And it's hard work. I think it's hard. In that moment, I was still not really willing to do the hard work. And I had to move at my own pace, but now it's like the work is so worth it. The daily work, the daily meditations, the daily self-care, the daily journaling, yoga, all of the things that I do on a daily basis, prayers, spiritual rites, I do all sorts of things every single day now to take care of myself that I just wasn't doing before. And that is where the power comes. That's where the life comes. It's in that love for yourself, right?
Totally.
That self-love. And I think the world around us oftentimes doesn't want us loving ourselves, but our internal world needs us to love ourselves. It truly does. And our internal world is just as important to each of us as the external world, right? I think especially here in the Western world, like there's this idea of, like you have to be like this selfless person, right? Like putting too much time into yourself is somehow selfish or arrogant or wrong, right? If you spend too much time in yourself, then you're like neglecting your community or whatever. But my experience with my self-love, like I have enabled myself in my community so much more. I am doing so much more for my community now when I love myself on a daily basis than I ever did before when I was just giving myself fully to the people around me. I shred myself thin, right, of that energy. And I think so many, especially women, I know men too, but especially women, I think out there, they give so much of themselves because they feel this, real intense need to give, while never giving anything much to themselves. And I think it's a really powerful experience to start giving a little bit back to yourself every single day.
I think that that's totally spot on. And I think that when we're doing it, when we're loving ourselves every single day in a consistent, kind, generous manner, not because we intellectually know we have to in order to be healthy, but because it's authentic and real, heart-centered love and care, right? Then that allows the higher vibration, energy, spirit, whatever word somebody wants to use, to come through us so our communities are even more blessed.
Absolutely.
Than if we were just doing it human to human. Like when we do it heart to heart, spirit to spirit, it's a way different conversation than when it's just prefrontal cortex to prefrontal cortex.
Exactly.
And I notice that too. And I get in conversations with some people that I work with, especially couples I work with, where like one of them will adopt a lot of yoga and meditation and the other one's like a little slower on the uptake. They're kind of curious. And it's like, well, am I being selfish if I meditate every day? Am I being, and then we go, no, self-care and taking care of ourselves and loving ourselves is different than selfishness. And so it takes sometimes some definitions and trying it on and seeing what works. So I love that. Yeah. What a powerful story. What a way to wake up. Ooh, and I'm glad you did. I'm glad you surrendered. I'm glad you're staying on the path, even on the hard days. And I'm really glad that you're bringing all of you forward into the world, because I believe that the world needs more of us, more people like you.
I know. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to just activate more people, because I've been activated and I've seen the power of that activation just within myself, just what I've been able to accomplish in just 18 months really of doing this sort of work. Like if I've been able to accomplish so much shift, so much change, so much metamorphosis within my own life in this kind of astrologically minuscule period of time,
Right.
I know that other people have to be able to find this in their own version. And again, it's like the toolkit, right? That's why I love the analogy of the toolkit, because now that I have the tools, I can show other people those tools and I can get them their own version of those tools so that they can start using them too. Because I think it's like, it's like imagine going to try to build a house and all you have is like a screwdriver and a hammer and 2 nails. You know what I mean? Like you need more materials, you need more stuff. So I like to call what I do a mental gardening, so it's like you need all the resources, right, to build a garden. And it takes time, it takes patience, it takes love, it takes watering the flowers, maybe messing up a little bit, pulling out the crop, pulling out the weeds a little bit and restarting, There's
Right.
a whole thing to building a healthy garden. I think we all have like a bit of a garden inside of our minds, inside of our spirits, inside of ourselves that we can take care of and nurture.
Oh my God. That's so amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, everybody, I'm sure that you are loving what Sarah is having to say, as I am. And if you're resonating with what Sarah's talking about, then check the show notes, because all the ways to contact her are there along with her bio. And I'm sure she would love to hear from you, even if it was just to say, I heard you on the Someone Gets Me podcast, right? Because the more that we share with each other and the more that we connect with each other, we all amplify all of our greatness, our goodness, and who we're meant to be. So if you're listening and you're feeling excited or you're connecting with her, let her know. You can let me know too. I'd love to know that, because I really believe that people like Sarah, when I met Sarah, I hung up from our Zoom call and I thought to myself, I'm meeting somebody who is helping bring in the new way. And I was so happy because she's so young. And sometimes I've been doing this 40 years. I've been doing it longer than you've been alive. And I'm like, so it just warms my heart. So I want to thank you for being on the show, but I have a couple more questions, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew to go to the show notes, follow Sarah. I'm already following her everywhere and learning from her, because,
Thank you. Yes.
because what I love is how fresh and vibrant and alive that you are. And that in and of itself is a beautiful gift. And yes. I'm glad you're doing the work. I'm glad you chose to do the work that night.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
It warms my heart. So my last question is this.
Okay.
And this will be a good one for you. That if we were going to do a billboard that the whole world was going to see with the message on it from you, you know, those ones that have the message and then it says the person's name. So Sarah Wong at the bottom. What's the message? And everyone's going to see it in the whole world.
Oh my goodness. See, I have so many different little taglines and phrases. Like I said, my brain works in analogies. So, but I think the over encompassing thing, it's definitely something just about the power of self-love, the power of self-empowerment, and to just encourage people out there to be, some quote. I would have to think about it, but a self-empowerment quote about love yourself first, right? Love yourself first. Maybe put that oxygen mask on first. Mm-hmm. And then you can really take care of others.
That's perfect. Love yourself first, then you can take care of others.
Love yourself first, then you can take care of others.
And you know what I thought of when you were saying that? I'm like, oh, you know what? Something Sarah could use is that self-love is really loving.
Oh, self-love is loving the world. Self-love is loving
real loving. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's beautiful. Well, I want to thank you for being on the show. This has been such an amazing time together. I hope you'll come back on the show in the future and we can stay connected, because I think that what you're doing, it just inspires me so much. And I know all of my listeners everywhere in all the many countries that we're listening are also inspired. So make sure you guys to contact Sarah and let me know too. Put a comment, write a review, follow her around, whatever it takes, so that you can continue to be inspired and have love and kindness, and you can thrive through change. And the answer is go within with some self-love.
Absolutely.
That's the answer. So Sarah, thank you so much for being on the show. I really, really appreciate it. And you've inspired me, and I'm sure everyone will be equally as inspired. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Diane. You've inspired me as well.
Thank you so much. So remember, everybody, to put your face to the sun so the shadows fall behind you, because you're a rock star and you're here on purpose with a mighty purpose. So go out there, love yourself deep within, and let your beautiful light shine, because in that, the world becomes a better place. See you next time. Be well.